we're faithless, you remain faithful, Lord. It's amazing. Just thank you for that. And really just breathe on us this morning and give us life, we pray. Amen. Hey, I'm going to read a verse if I can find it. You don't need to turn there, but it just really amazes me that anybody puts the time into this, like, you value this to be here. It's like really something. And I'm going to say something, but I'm not fishing for compliments. That's not what I'm looking for at all. So don't say anything good about me, please. Listen, this is Proverbs 22:4. It has nothing to do with the class, but humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor in life, right? And just the reward for the humble person is amazing. Riches and honor in life. And your lives to be here and to invest the time, do the work, listen, in some cases travel around the world is just very edifying for me. So just thank you for that. I really just respect that, that we're not, we believe in lifelong learning, right? And I think if I were anybody and I get myself in a place in life where I stop learning, right? I know everything I need to know now. That's like a very, very not a good place to be, So it's awesome, and then it just helps us also just to develop our, accumulated knowledge. There's another word, but so thank you for that. I thought maybe I could just do a little bit of a commentary because we hit the subject maybe yesterday in a way I didn't entirely intend to, but I just talked about just the situation I was up in Massachusetts some years ago where we had a change of sort of a violent change of pastoral leadership up there. And I'm saying this is like one of the elements that caused the problem is that pastor was under attack from certain members in the congregation, no doubt about it. I wasn't part of it, but that was happening. And there were people who were, I think, dissatisfied with the leadership because it wasn't Pastor Stevens. There was one guy in the church, I don't want to narrow it down too much, but he was making statements. He was a prominent guy. He had some, I don't want to narrow it down, but he would make statements like, well, Pastor Stevens is my pastor. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying, if someone's in my church or your church saying that Pastor Schaller is my pastor, it's like, what on earth are you doing where you are? If Pastor Schaller is your pastor, then you relocate. Well, I can't because I can't sell my house. Well, okay, I don't accept that answer. You know what I'm saying? And if you're hearing that, and I don't think you are, but if you're ever in that situation, whoever I'm in that, like I don't want to take sides, but it's just like that guy's not going to come here and get support from us to be making statements like that. And and really, I was talking to Pastor Schaller about this. I don't mean to drop names like that, but I just did. Sorry about that. But I was saying, like, I've seen us and the way we handle situations. I think one of the blessings of affiliation, and we'll talk about this, is people do come to us. If there's a situation in a church somewhere in the world, people will ask us questions about it. They'll come to us. I had someone, not a credit student, but one of the audit students yesterday talk about a situation in a home church. And what I've seen for my entire life here is that home base is not interested in pushing pastors out of their pulpit, all right? They're not interested in it. And when people, come to us, like, I came to, just because of a situation years ago, I came to home base, you know what I'm saying, and talked about to a certain leader here about a situation, and the answer is always, like what I've seen, the answer is always, go back to that church, right, and make the best of a situation, all right? Now, if push comes to shove, this is what I was told, you do have options. And it might be the case that it's just not a good fit where you are, But I just, like I say, just that support, that backup exists. When that pastor, that I talked about this situation, did leave the pulpit, and I was one of the guys who like voted him out. Like, there's no, the further I get away from the situation, there's like zero joy in my heart that guy is no longer pastoring his church. Like zero joy. I think he was a good, sound doctrine. He loved people. He was a good preacher, good communicator. There's only one Pastor Stevens, you know what I'm saying? And we're not trying to reproduce that. And for, so I just, that's what I'm saying. If this guy is doing a solid job, a good job, like what's like wrong with that? Like, thank God that someone is out there, people are coming to hear him preach the Bible. Like, why do I want to go in and disrupt that? Now, of course, I've got decisions I can make, whether or not where I'm going to be. But I just want to say that we're, and I think, I believe worldwide there's far more men who are gifted pastors who are not in the pulpit than people who shouldn't be in the pulpit that are pastoring a church. That's how my mindset works. And I just want us to be in the position of enabling, not disabling. If someone comes to me and talks about a situation, I might sympathize. Yes, I wish your pastor could be better at this. All right, because I don't want to. I'm sorry to say this, guys, but I will not lie to people. All right. When my children come to me and ask me, Dad, is this going on in the church? I don't say no when the answer is yes, when I know it to be the case. You know what I'm saying? I just won't. I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? And if someone comes to me and I'm having a real problem with what's going on in the church, I might say, yeah, if they were to do it differently, it would help. But the reason I would ever say that is to assist that person. Okay, you're suffering. I agree, some of your suffering is legitimate. Okay, yeah. Now, can you live with that or can't you? But yeah, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong and go back and, if someone's stepping on your toes, I'm not going to tell you it doesn't hurt. But the purpose is not to go back and create a party about, how this pastor needs to improve his leadership, Let him get that from God. Let him get that from the exposure he has. You always have the right to go to your pastor and speak to him. And again, what you don't have to do is the right is to go to, the guy next to you in church and start talking about it, because it's not going to help, right? It's what it's going to do. Like, I'm just saying this, guys. Whether the word gets back to the pastor that two people are talking, right? The atmosphere gets it back to him. You know what I'm saying? He knows, you know what I'm saying? Or he has that sense that people are talking. And what that's going to do is going to bring in go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, just hand the mic over to, or maybe here you go. Don't fall off the platform here.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, if people come to you and kind of complain about a leader, like, they're not doing that, they are wrong, because biblically they're supposed to go straight to the leader. So how do you kind of have empathy, but at the same time you correct them?
Yeah. So Helena, I'm gonna answer this question this way, and I think maybe this is, I hope, one of the values that we're adding with this course. I'm not going to say they're wrong, okay? I'm going to say the way they play that out can be wrong, but the fact that they know something's wrong, I'm not going to say that's wrong at all. It might be very right and very accurate, and that's one of the things we're going to start developing this in the next I don't know if we'll get to it this morning. We might. But you start bumping into, that's what we're trying to teach is good leadership, good administration. You know what I'm saying? And there is, bad leadership out there, or in certain areas, someone might be not a good leader. So when someone comes to me, and like I say, they're suffering because of that, yeah, you are suffering, and it could be different. Maybe you can talk to the guy, maybe we can talk to the guy. But yeah, can we, I was talking to Laura yesterday about, just this verse about, we're not going to quench the smoking flax or break the bruised reed. Like that is, okay, so that is our heart in this thing. But get this, just having the right heart, right, that is not a cover-up for the wrong action. Like I'm treating you wrong, but know my heart in it. Like I don't like that type of response. I mean, like, okay, sure, I want you to know my heart, but if I can fix it, let's fix it also. I can't use my good intentions. Like, so now I'm over in if I'm sincere, I can do whatever I want to do. I don't want us leading that way at all. I want us correctable, and again, that person, hopefully in that church, has a venue for communication, and before they get to us, does this church have, now we're back to it, but does this church have elders in place that, if you can't talk to the pastor, is there other leadership that's known and communicated, views it as their job when someone comes to me, I have this problem, well, have you spoken to the pastor yet? Might be the first question that the elder would say. But if the person says, no, I feel like I can't talk to the pastor, I think that could be a legitimate answer. You got someone in the church, they're intimidated by the guy. I'm not going to say, well, you're off because you're talking to me. Go to the person alone. I think sometimes I'm going to say, hey, listen, let me hold your hand. Let's go and talk together. I will help you in this because people are people. They're not always going to talk, for that reason. They feel like they can't. And then the other thing that happens is people suffer as long as they can until they reach the point where they are upset, right? And they're emotional, and they don't want to go in and talk and then break down in tears or start yelling and screaming because they know it's not going to come out right. And that emotion makes them feel like they're off, and therefore they don't communicate because they feel like they're off. There's something wrong with me because I'm troubled about this, right? Because they just don't have the spiritual resources, or maybe just the knowledge to see what it is, So that's, so I got into it a little bit. That was very good. But that was just starting off to say, like, there's just no joy in my heart over this stuff. And, how we handle the situations, how are we going to help people not damage them in these processes and in the course of life is like very, very, very important, And I absolutely believe, there is a lot of room in Greater Grace World Outreach for guys to operate in different ways. There's just tons of room. We'll get back to that later, but maybe I won't get back to it later just because maybe this is coming out in a good way right now. Like, our church is really, we are not a denomination, you know what I'm saying? We are, and people, there's room. There's one guy I know, he's troubled over a specific doctrinal view he has, all right? Like, he thinks that, and I'm reading this email about the specific doctrinal viewpoint that he has, and I'm saying, I view it the same way he does. I didn't know there was some difference between me and Greater Grace World Outreach. I wasn't even aware of that. I realized that some people in our, in the world might view it a little bit differently, but this is how I view it. I haven't declared myself disapproved over this issue. If I felt that way, I could go and talk to somebody about it. But why are you, like what is really behind that? Is that issue really the issue, or have I taken that issue, or has the atmosphere taken that issue, right? And I'm now in fellowshipping with an accusation about my life, right? That might be one possibility. Or, like what causes in James chapter 1, I think it's 1, what causes wars, maybe it's somewhere else, what causes wars and fightings among you, right? What causes those wars and fighting? It's because there's a war in your own heart, right? So can I quiet the war in my heart through doctrine? Can I believe the best about you and believe that you're believing the best about me, right? Can I function, or do I got to take the one thing that maybe, why would I do that? You know what I'm saying? I believe there's pastors in Greater Grace World Outreach that have a different view than most of us would about the rapture. You know what I'm saying? We teach, post-trib. That's what we teach, right? And there's reasons for that. But I think, did I lose you on that one? Pre-trib rapture. I'm sorry, post-trib, second. Yeah, thank you for that. Whoa, here we go. I came out wrong. We pre-tribulation rapture. Thank you for that. I believe there's pastors. I'm not searching it out, but just stuff I've heard over the last decades that maybe have a different view of that. Maybe they're mid-trib people. All right. Okay. So what am I going to do with that? You know what I'm saying? Am I going to make that a huge deal? Like I gotta run around persuading people that my point of view is right, or am I not going to make a deal out of it? If someone asks me in my church, am I going to my pulpit and preach it, right? And then someone from Baltimore visits, and then I take that opportunity to preach my view to make my point. Like, why would I do that? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't I instead, teach my congregation this way, right? This is my point of view. The men I look up to view it differently. I want you to be aware of that. Consider. Why would I do it that way when teaching on the eschatology comes up once every 10 years? Why wouldn't I do it that way instead of this is a problem for me? You know what I'm saying? And that's why we got 2 billion denominations around the world, because people separate over this stuff. And there's times to separate. There's times that we can't walk together in this area. But so this is I'm just telling you how I view it. And that's why, how I handled that situation 20 years ago at this point, I might handle it differently now. I think maybe it might have been a whole lot better to have conversations with the pastor early on and sit down with them, talk this out, what's going on. And are we afraid to have these conversations? Are we afraid to talk to people about very important things because we're concerned about the outcome? If we arrive at an answer that we don't want, or we don't want to talk about this because we might end up over there. And the over there means that someone has to change his life and maybe leave a position that he's in. And again, men, they'll be our security from our job positions, That's how it goes. Like, this is my life here. I can't, what do I do? Well, maybe God has another life for you. Maybe God has another door for you that he's going to open, rather than keeping you in a place that is untenable, right? This problem, is not going to go away. This problem, it might be unsolvable. If you stay here, it's going to get worse. The tensions that exist are going to get worse and worse. Damage will be done. Wouldn't it be better to solve that right now? And that's the choices that we make in our lives, right? Just, certainly as pastors and in positions, but just as people. We make these positions, these decisions all the time, where I'm going to live, what I'm, just all this type of who I'm associating with, And I think that we're here because, in a sense, we're radicals. I'm saying that we go right back to radical. The base meaning of that word is root. Okay, we get right back to the root of the issue, and then we build a foundation on that and make decisions based on the ultimate truth. And that's the joy of life as believers, right? We start up here. What does God say? And it goes down into our life, and it actually works. Because God holds us up in it. And the rest of the world has a philosophy that is untenable, right? How can you be like a existentialist and survive, right? I mean, you can try and make it work, but it doesn't. How can you not know what's going to happen to you after death and make it work? Well, you don't think about it. You don't think about it, because if you started thinking about it, then you'd be looking for answers, right? And then am I going to find an answer? And then what's it going to take me to get to that answer? And if I don't like the answer, it's going to change my life. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay where I am. Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to also address
There you go.
Okay. I just want to address even the question here of, I think the pastor needs to convey that people can come to them, and I understand that sometimes people are afraid to do that. I think if it's addressed numerous times, I think people's guards will come down and they'll be able to know that, I know I can go to Pastor Schaller. He's built that within us.
Right.
But if they still feel that they can't, again, I would rather have them go to a leader than to go to somebody else in the church, because that starts that conspiracy.
Yes.
And that's when it really, really becomes dangerous. But I think if we communicate that right, the bottom line is they're looking for this sound counsel, and we want to be able to give that properly. But a lot of things can start talking and moving around when they don't go to leadership or don't go to the pastor, and they try to find their answers or get counsel from the world. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just going to say this thing, like how we communicate that. Like if you say, once a year we have an open door policy, don't kid yourself that communicated sufficiently to your congregation that they can come to you. You know what I'm saying? Don't throw this stuff out there and then think, I covered it. Well, didn't I say that once? Just how I conduct myself day in and day out, in addition to saying stuff like that, is going to communicate. People are going to learn from that whether or not I really have an open door, whether or not I really want to hear from people. So, listen, my door is open. That's, but I'm conducting a rap session in my church. I'm saying if someone asks a question, how do I respond to it? Do I talk to that person, or do I blow it off? Am I troubled when people ask me certain things? People are going to pick up we're people. What your body language and your demeanor is going to tell them more than your words, right? So we have to, we have to walk the walk, not just talk it, what I'm saying? And so I think it's great. But again, we're back to, but I'll just say it again, do people know they have a venue? Do they know there's a covering? Do they know that there's a way for them? Look, guys, I want you to know this. I care about you. Here are the elders of the church, right? Do people in my church know what the leadership structure is? Do they know that they can go to people? And, okay, so you're more comfortable talking to this elder over here than you are talking to me. There's a reason for that. Thank God you're talking to somebody instead of holding it in, because, I recognize that it's like no problem. Like I'm not threatened because someone's more comfortable talking to that guy than that person is talking to me. Like, thank God that we've got gifts in the body. We've got, different people, different gifts, different connections. That's why this leadership is here. I got leadership here to do things that I cannot do. You know what I'm saying? Or, I can't do because of my gift, or because of my time, or because it's going to work better, or because I want to see other people raised up and develop their gifts. Like all these reasons. That's why these guys are here. And so that I'm just saying, and that's like, the other thing is I really like, I know sometimes I've talked over some of you guys, like you raised your hand and I've said, hold it a second there. But I don't, instead what I really want to be doing is like, if you raise your hand, I want to stop. And that just communicates, I'm saying, all these things we do, that's how I want you to be. I'm saying? That's how I want us to be, is available. And when someone comes to us, that door really is open and not, not in theory open, but in reality, not quite as open as I think it is, and that's why I want us to be, weak in our leadership, in the sense that not bad leaders, but weak in terms of, I'm not sure I can define that. You know what I'm saying, but maybe you don't know what I'm saying. It's just, it's kind of great not to have all the answers. You know what I'm saying? It's great not to always have something to say. It's great to listen. Like we were talking about listening the other day, and maybe we'll talk about it again, but just like when I'm in, and that you guys were in that staff meeting yesterday, right? And normally I sit kind of close to Pastor Schaller, but when you guys or people in that room have the microphone and are talking, right? And I try to whisper something to Pastor Schaller, he's not interested. He's more interested in what that person is saying. He's listening intently. He wants to get what they're saying, Sometimes I get bored and I start, sorry, but I do. I don't have that, but, maybe something comes up and I want to grab him on something, and it doesn't work because he is listening to what we have to say, to him, probably better than we're listening to each other. So it's just an amazing thing, and it's just very healthy for us to have these conversations, and I think that's why these different courses exist. Just send the microphone up.
Maybe you wanted to probably off. Maybe you want to defer the question. Maybe you're going to hit it later.
Yeah.
But so you have talked a lot about open doors, listening to people. People are not wrong. I mean, you've said that several times. And I agree with that, like in most cases, But then the other side of it is, just thinking about two scenarios. One is that, Pastor Hadley's class on counseling was very much encouraging us to tell people that they're living in sin or that their heart is evil. And it was a big part of counseling. Gently, lovingly, all of that, sure. But then also, here's the deal, And then the problem that I'm thinking of specifically is, like, I had a parent came into my office 3 times, kind of ripping me apart, no problem. Like once a year, 3 years in a row, no problem. Then the 4th time, he ripped my staff apart, and that's when I said that's enough. Like I just felt like, yes, I want to listen to you. Yes, I want to help you. But at some point, am I even helping you? Like, am I helping you at all? Because what you need to do is go to God or have a cross life, or like, stop complaining all the time. Be grateful. Like, at what point do I say, you're off and you need to go to God? What point am I, you know what I mean? Because it seems to me that in this world, a world where everyone's entitled, in a world where everyone thinks the church owes them, in a world where there is no cross a lot of times, we are becoming soft as leaders. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm thinking about myself. Like, I'd love to not be confrontational. I'd love to be gentle. I'd love to be liked, but
Yes.
Then there's also like, here's the deal, girl, or here's the deal, buddy.
Yeah. So, So God help us with this. The first thing is, like, in terms of someone living in sin, absolutely. What this course is about is organizational. All right. It's not about really sin on the part of the congregation or on the part of the leader. It's things. There's things we can learn, things we can do, habits we can learn that will help the organization work better. And the organization is the church, all right? And that's what we're really covering in this class. Is there's principles that work, and do you get these principles from the Bible? They're consistent with the Bible, but there's other things out there, like if we're going to have a transportation ministry, right? Which Pastor Bob, I guess you guys going to buy a van or something. Like, you got to get a guy with a driver's license, and he's not going to learn how to drive that vehicle in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like how it is with organizations. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the Bible is a complete manual about how to run an organization. There's awesome stuff in there, and those are the principles we build on. But there's things in addition to that, like accumulated knowledge by trial and error that is out there. So why do we need to reinvent the wheel? Or number two, why would we want to do things the wrong way, thinking it's the right way, and cause problems when we can be educated and learn in it? So that's what we're doing here. Yes, what you said is absolutely true. Like, there comes a point, all right? I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that when they come to me with a concern about something, especially if the concern is legitimate, that is the cause of their problem, and if I can fix that, it will allow them to function normally and not be upset anymore. But when you get people coming to you repeatedly, and every year it's either the same problem or a new problem, you know what I'm saying? Then a line has been crossed there, which is this person is just they're going to live this way, and I can't be exposed to that. I certainly can't expose my staff to that, and they do have to make a choice. And at some point, ma'am, sir, there's other churches with youth ministries. Maybe that'll work better for you. Of course, once you say that, they're gonna, but understand, once you say that, they're going to walk out of the room, and that's going to be quoted around the world. That guy just kicked me out of the church. So maybe you're going to be careful playing that card, because maybe that's a better one for the pastor to play. But if you play it on a lower level, that's how it goes. Doug Brooks tells this story. He's in Budapest. He's working in the school, and he's handling the finances in the school. And someone comes to him, and what he intended to communicate to the person is, the decision I'm making about assisting you financially is not a personal decision. I'm going to look at the objective facts, your financial situation, our financial situation, and it's not a question of me liking you or not liking you. That has nothing to do with it, right? What it has to do with is we have certain criteria, and we're going to make an objective decision. You can trust in that. That was the long version of what he wanted to say to this person. But the way he worded it to a person is, you're just a number to me, all right? So the person walks out, and that gets quoted around the world. You know what I'm saying? So the way we say things is very important. And some of this stuff, don't try this at home. But I just watched the leadership here, and I hear it said, can we really solve this person's problem? Is the solution to that person's problem really here? Or was that a raised hand or just a gesture? So pass the mic over to. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Go ahead.
Interrupt.
I want you to.
Yeah, I apologize. So like, for example, you were speaking earlier, and I just would go back to what you were saying earlier about like the guy, in the light of what Pastor Pete is saying here, the guy who comes to you and says, says something about the pastor or whatever, the leadership, and you say, well, have you talked to the pastor? And he says, I don't feel I can go there and talk to him. And you said, like, well, can I help you? Maybe and take your hand and let's go and walk, let's go talk to the pastor. But often the person doesn't want to talk to the pastor. Like they absolutely don't want to talk to the pastor. They want to talk to you, or any number of other people, and actually, so like when I discern that the person is saying I want to help them to talk to the pastor or whoever it is that they need to talk to, but if they're absolutely I don't really want to talk with them, then then me holding their hand actually can end up in them dragging me into something where I'm thinking like, well, yeah, what there maybe is something wrong with the
Right.
pastor.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe, maybe this guy, maybe what this guy is saying is actually not happening.
Right.
And I can, if I don't say like, well, okay, like, well, if you don't, you won't. Wait a minute, you won't go to the pastor, or like when someone says to
Right.
me, like, please, when they start a conversation with, whatever you do, please don't tell pastor.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I say like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Yeah.
Please stop because I'm going to.
Right. So I am going to have you hold your thought there just for a second. This is how I think about that, right? Like if I'm on a board of elders somewhere, and again, I am observing the pastor, you know what I'm saying? And I'm making, just because I'm a person, but I'm also at this point on the board of elders, I'm responsible, right? And I may be observing certain traits in the pastor, and then I might have a responsibility to go and talk to him. Can we do this better? And then the other issue would be like, okay, so this person's come to me with this story, all right? How many other people have come to me with that same story, right? And if 5 people in the church have come to me, it's like there is a problem there. You know what I'm saying? Or I would say there probably is a problem there, and unless they're feeding off of each other. I don't know what that is. But again, if they've been unable to access a proper channel of communication, they're going to find an improper one. So I'm still back to like, why are they doing this? Is this because they're bad people, or because they're in an untenable situation because of what they're suffering day in and day out? So, we had a situation on your staff, Pastor Pete, several years ago. And there was a staff member who, complaints were generated about the way this person conducted himself, And we were aware of it, we were watching it. And it's like every time I was in a meeting, talking a staff member about it, oh yeah, I had that same problem with this guy. You know what I'm saying? So we probably had 10 different body members, 5 anyway. Yeah, I had that same problem. And then we went to the person, had the conversation with him, and we asked him to step down out of the ministry. And he's there like where are my accusers? This is not scriptural. If they have a problem with me, they should come to me alone. And I would say on that one, and I could be wrong on this, I don't think I am, is guys, that protection, that's talking about personal sin. I'm not in this room accusing you of personal sin. That's not what that's here for. I'm telling you that your leadership makes enough people uncomfortable that we want you to get out of that situation because, this is bothering people. I'm not saying they're right or saying they're wrong, but I'm not going to go to the body and tell them to get right and accept this guy's leadership. Why not just do something else with your life instead of doing something that's not working for a significant part of our clientele here? Why would I do that? It's not working. I've got this business I run across the street, and I got very small staff over there. We got the office person, we got the maintenance guy, and when these people get hired, you have to understand, if I get a significant number of my residents over there complaining about you, you're gone. Whether you're right or wrong, if you're generating complaints, it's not working. People are unhappy. We got to get someone in there. That's just part of it. So does that mean I have to go around being nice to people? Yeah, you do have to be nice to people. You know what I'm saying? You do. That's part of it. You can't go around being abrasive with people because it'll cause problems. So that's how I'm thinking about it. And then Like, and then, so again, I'm the elder, I go to the pastor, this is what I'm hearing. Well, who are they? This is conspiratorial. So, but what you said, if I hear it from enough people and I'm seeing it myself, well, they can't go alone, but someone has to, right? Someone has to go alone, and I think we're going to hit this again, but we're on the subject now. You know, people come to Baltimore with problems in local assemblies around the world, and it's like they think that we're going to step in and solve the problem, and we really don't have that power, right? Churches are self-governing, self-propagating, self-supporting, right? We're not a denomination, right? We are not in charge of your churches, right? We are your brothers, we are your friends, but you are responsible. You know, who's going to discipline a pastor? His elders are. That's how that goes. That's where it starts, you know? And so, you know, does he have elders? Does he have functioning elders, you know? You know, people think that we can, you know, parachute in and solve problems. I was talking to another one of you about, and again, we'll mention this again, but we're on the subject, like there was a change, you know, a pastor left, and we're waiting for Baltimore to send someone to us. Well, I was in that situation in Lee, Massachusetts. Hey, you know, we just, you know, I'm sorry to say it, but this is the thought process. Hey, we just got rid of a guy who was against Baltimore, you know, who didn't want to be with Baltimore anymore. We're the heroes now. How's Baltimore going to support us? And we're waiting for Baltimore to send the pastor, and it never came, you know? And we're, oh my God, what have we done? If we'd known this, maybe we would have thought about this twice. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, you know, and who's Baltimore going to send to your church? I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? We can't, we're not going to pay him. You know what I'm saying? He has to come there and make a life for himself. I don't know what you guys can pay him. You're asking us to tell someone he's called to put in the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice and to move his family to come pastor your church. God has to do that. We can't do that, you know? And we're going to send a guy, it doesn't work out, now we're responsible. You know, then he's calling us when things aren't, hey, you sent me here. And we hear that. People move to Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Then things aren't going to go well for them. They run into financial problems, you know? And then they come to us. It's not working out for me. Well, what do you want from us? Well, pastor told me to move here. You know what I'm saying? So now we own that. It's like, you're kidding me. You got to come here on your faith, not on our faith. Just because we love you and we say it would be great to have you here in our church, that's not counsel from God. That's our heart towards you, you know? So I think I got Pastor Ken, your hand was up a little while ago. Okay.
I won't talk again the rest of the morning. One of the things that I have learned in 11 years, I traveled with Pastor Schaller 5 years, then on my own 5 years, visited maybe 60 churches, and then also working here. One, you know, in the world, in business, my primary job is to fix things or perfect things. Like, all I really do is, how can I make it better? How can we improve? Like, how can I make it, like, I am totally geared at work that way. And I have learned from Pastor Schaller, he very often doesn't want to fix it. Like, many times, people are frustrated even because he just doesn't want to get involved. It's not fixable. He understands it. I think he leaves it for God, for you to go to God with. When I started traveling on my own to visit churches, he said, "Don't go." He's not here, is he? I want to talk about him when he's here. He would. One of the things he told me is, don't go with and have in your heart that you want to fix everything or that you have something to correct. Just go to love and edify. And a lot of times you don't have answers. A lot of times you can't fix anything. And even here, you know, you can go to him. You know, if you go to him about somebody else, you know, you pretty much count on the fact that the next very thing that's going to happen is that you and him are going to be walking over to that office or that person to deal with it with him, and, you know, then he kind of leaves you on your own with that person. I mean, so that's really in my experience, primarily, that's how we operate as a church. Many things we can't really fix. And then the attitude of fixing everything is very damaging. Fix everything, fix everything, fix everything. You get a pile of dead bodies behind you, and you feel horrible, and nothing's fixed. You haven't helped anybody, and you find yourself in the middle of two disagreeing parties, and they both hate you. And that was something that was blowing my mind at first, you know, like, Jesus is perfect, God is perfect, the Bible is perfect, let's make everything perfect. But actually, it's not like that in the body at all. It's just basically seeing people not in the flesh and going to God with things. I mean, just to make that point.
Yeah. And Pastor Pete, I'm gonna comment on that just before we go. What's that?
It's an incredibly sad statement.
Yeah.
It sounds no different than the corporations in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. I got it actually.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna have you hold here, okay? And let me. I'm gonna comment on that if I could. I'd also say about that, Pastor Pete. I would say it this way: is that Pastor Schaller has his gift and his job, right? I have my gift and my job, and my job is to fix things. You know what I'm saying? And I think what this course is about is if some things are fixable, and we can set up our organization a certain way, I want you to be able to do that. So we'll keep going with that. I mean, Mark, let's hear from Pastor Ken. I know we're going to get back to that in a few minutes here. Or not in a few minutes.
I
in a
want
few
to
hours.
stay on that same line, though, too, because I was going to really address it. I'm service business, too, and that's what we do, and it's all about.
Right.
But sometimes when people come to us, and maybe one of the reasons why they don't want to maybe go to the pastor is they don't like the advice or the counsel that they received. It's like the youngest son. He comes to me, I say no, who's he going to?
Right.
He's going right to mom, And this is how some people are in the church. They're going to keep looking for somebody that's going to give them the answer that they want to hear. But that's not always helpful, Sometimes that's more destructive. And but again, I think the open policy thing is, and I've heard that counsel from Pastor Scheller a lot too, and it is true.
Yeah.
And I received that when I went to Miami. That was part of the sending.
Right.
You can't fix
Yeah.
and you learn it. You act. Oh yeah, we can. I mean, we got God with us. He's right with us, and then you learn.
Right.
You learn through it. So.
And then the downside of like my approach, where I am trying to fix things, is it can go this way. Is that by entertaining a bunch of time with that person, right, about a situation that's not so fixable, right? I just sort of like feed into the pathology here, like this is something that we need to keep on talking about a lot, and I end up keeping that person from getting to the solution because I just listen too much, you know what I'm saying? And he never bumps in to the brick wall that God's put in front of him so he can go on with his life. And instead, we end up with this, yes, you have a problem. I'm sorry I can't fix it. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could. Maybe we can keep working on it. Let's talk again. And then this person's living in, what I said earlier, maybe yesterday is, what we talk to people about is we're telling them what they need to be thinking about. You know what I'm saying? And there's another guy in this church, and he has problems. I sat down with Pastor Schaller, Pastor Shabelli, and I say, what can we do to help this person? And shouldn't we call him in and see his problem is legitimate? And they said, look, the guy can come to us, but we're just not going to create. They didn't say it this way, but we're just not going to create a forum about this. This guy has problems that we can't solve. And I was disappointed, because I'm not saying you take the side, but you care about body members. You want to help them, How can I do this? So then I had a guy recently that we asked not to come to church, all right? And there's reasons for that. And we do that very rarely. I've done it 3 times in 10 years to my recollection. And then, so I'm on the phone with this guy, trying to do the best I can to calm him down. And I'm going to continue to do that. If we can help him with his problem, if we can make a way for him to be here, I'm open to it. The heart's not to boot him out of the church. It's just, he just can't be with certain people in the church. It doesn't work. So, he could be here today, no problem. I wish he were, but it's not like we don't want him here. But I'm on the phone with this guy having a 40-minute conversation the other day. And then he took, here we go down the road. So we sent him a letter just to let him know you really can't be here. And because if he shows up, he's going to be escorted off the property. The letter was very kind and gracious. I didn't tell him he was off or anything like that. It was just, you just can't be here for now, for a season. We got to give it some time. We're sorry about this. Go to another Greater Grace church. You're not being kicked out of Greater Grace, but just because of this relationship that's not working, you can't be here right now. So that letter goes on Facebook, which, okay. I'm not ashamed of the letter. I'm happy I wrote it the way I did. I'm happy for people to see it. But then he's telling me on the phone that, I've heard from a bunch of people, that, who have come to me, because they've had the same types of problem with Greater Grace. And this same guy that I went to Pastor Shal and Pastor Belly about, can't we help this guy? They say, we don't really think he can. He's one of the names that this other guy referenced as like, these people find each other. I'm saying? It's amazing. Like, why are you trafficking in this information? Why is it that way? If you're unhappy with the church, go find another church and be happy. Why is it important to you to share with the world how you've been wronged? We did the best we could, but again, we're back to is there a war within you that you're making our war, which is just not going to be our war? Ty, I set up some ground rules for this class, which is I've got credit students here. All right, and I want to give them the airtime, and the audit students, in a sense, are second-class citizens. I'm sorry about that, and then so we got.
This is an exception because
Well, hold on then. Just wait, because we got to give you the microphone. All right, and Pastor Ken will walk that over to you.
just because I think that it's important to be said.
Okay.
I came from another church over 25. I came from this church over 25 years ago because Pastor Stevens was answering my questions before I even asked him.
Is that mic working? Yes. Okay, go ahead. Pastor was asking.
I want
Go
to
ahead.
read this because that statement that.
Just hold the mic closer. There you
Okay,
go.
that statement was extremely, over 25 years ago, I came to this church because Pastor Stevens was answering my questions from the pulpit before I even asked him. And I was amazed. At other churches, they were asking me a lot of questions. It says in Proverbs 30, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life. A pastor is a person who can put their hand on God and a hand on me, and I can hear from God. Pastor Stevens was amazing in his exemplifying that definition of a pastor. And I got this in my morning prayer. This is a statement that I want to read. There is no problem the mind of Christ hasn't solved. All our problems are gifts from the Lord when we give them back to Yahweh. Our Father has an all-time perfect success rate. No other God has ever solved a problem. The Bible gives us access to the mind of Christ. Humbly reading the Word of God realigns our minds with God's mind. Jesus is constantly praying for us. When we pray with the mind of Christ, heaven reorders earth. Joy and suffering has been ordained for our lives. The Lord has guaranteed the ultimate outcome will be better beyond what we could ever hope for or imagine. Father, you are our beginning and our ending. We cast all our cares upon you and ask for rest. Give us the grace to abide in your perfect will as we look for you. Thank you for your unfailing love. In the name of Jesus, we pray. I say this because this is how the church is. Not like the corporations of the world. I work for a Fortune 500 corporation, and the same squabbles and the misunderstanding that when we become nothing as Christians, God becomes our everything. And we are to speak as oracles of God to one another. And a person should hear truth, and truth should defeat the flesh, but promote life in us so that we grow as one body. And there's no denominations in the body of Christ. There's only one body. And when everyone is realigned around the mind of Christ, then we actually manifest God's nature on earth, and there's blessings wherever we are.
Amen.
So every single problem that we have, it's a problem for a reason. The mystery of iniquity is in 36, why we suffer. God gives us suffering so that we can bring it to God. And when I bring it to a man of God who is in touch with God, he can give me truth in exchange for my problem. And that's what it's all about. It's about the mind of God growing in us and us becoming less and less.
Yeah.
That's the body of Christ.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so what we've been talking about this morning, we're gonna hit it again. But I'm gonna get back to sort of what I hope. I wish it were a logical progression. I'm not sure it's so logical, but I'm just going in the order that I have here. So let me just look at our time now. We're an hour into it. What am I going to do here? Let me just think. I'm going to go a little while longer here, and then we'll break, just so the breaks are sort of evenly spread out. So this next thing, we're gonna start it off like with an exercise here, and I'm just gonna put a scenario before you, and then I want you to like brainstorm about so the question I'm going to put in front of you. Just again, the ground rules for the class, we got our credit students, and then we also have at least 2 individuals who are pastors, and because of the experience and the insight, I want to be hearing from you, Pastor Tony and Pastor Ken. Anything you guys would want to add to the class is like very important, along with what our credit students are saying. And then I have a goal today. Maybe we're going to wait till tomorrow, but we will be hearing from Edwige again in this class. She doesn't say a word, but she will speak. All right? Not right now. Okay, so here we go. So here we are. We got Pastor Bob Schwartz in somewhere in Ohio. Where in Ohio? Cincinnati?
Yep, Cincinnati.
See, I pulled that out of nowhere. Is it really Cincinnati or some small hick town near Cincinnati?
It's north of downtown, about 15.
Within the city limits?
No, it's a little city by itself.
Oh, what's the name of the city?
Deer Park.
Deer Park. Okay, it's not a hick town, but it's not.
Mailing address does say Cincinnati.
Okay, perfect. So here we are. We've got the church has a building that it's leasing. Okay. Let's set aside the issue of the actual ownership of that building. I'm going to make that irrelevant. Whoever owns that building, that's not an issue today because it's going to mess up the exercise here. So the church has a facility that it leases, and basically, the lease is they're not coalescers with other individuals. It's not like there's 5 different churches renting the same place. The church rents it, they got the run of the place, okay? So someone comes to Pastor Bob and says to him, Pastor Bob, church member, all right? And says to him, my child's having a birthday party. Would it be okay for us to have this birthday party in the church, all right? Most of the people that are coming to this party are church members, maybe a few that aren't. Might be an outreach to get people there. Would it be okay for us to do that? Now, Pastor Bob says yes, all right, as the answer to that question. Okay? Now, is that bigger, Laura? Is that readable? A little better. So the question is, and I'm looking for a number of possibilities, not one right answer. Why would the pastor say yes to that request? What would motivate him? What would be in his mind when he says yes to it? And I think there's a number of different possibilities, and I want you guys to brainstorm. And we're not going to pass the mic around, but when you throw your ideas out there, I'll write them down in large letters, okay? So why would he say yes to that? What's that? I think we're going to shout it out. If we're just, yeah.
Edifies the body.
Okay. So let's see if we can put that in different words, all right? Edification, all right? Okay, and tell me who's being edified.
The person, right?
Okay, so your edification for that person, all right? For that person. And what does that edification consist of? The church cares about me?
I think that the
Okay.
and use facilities versus having to go to somebody else's church.
Okay. So the person it edifies them because they're appreciative. Maybe put it this way, of a service the church is providing, okay? Of a service provided. Is that accurate? Does that do justice to what you just said there? Okay? So I'm going to have Pastor Pete hold. Any other reason why the pastor would do this, would say yes to this? Go ahead, Helena.
It's kind of like because the church is the family, the big
Okay.
family, so it's just an expression of that maybe.
Okay, so that's related to this, but actually number 2 here. So trying to put this in different words. The church is a family. Maybe it's all edification, but it's an expression of family life. Okay?
Body life.
Body life, thank you. Life flips. Okay, any other reasons why he would do it?
Afraid to say, he's afraid of offending the person. He's afraid to say
Okay. Okay, maybe fear of offense. Offense. Okay. Any other reason why he would say yes?
You mentioned outreach. That
Pardon?
It could be an outreach.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's think about that. And maybe some of this other stuff is included in the way I'm going to say it, but the church will benefit. Okay? Okay? Any other reason why he would do this?
Financial benefit.
If he's going to rent it? Yep. Okay, I'm running out of space here. Okay. All right. Any other reason?
Maybe not in the cases of birthday party, but other events, you know, like someone who's passed away, or what are they called?
Face-to-face service?
Face to face, but afterwards.
Repast.
Yes,
That's
they
the
call
Baltimore
those
word, yeah.
events. Or honoring somebody, or
Yeah.
maybe 50, I don't know, an 80th birthday, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So, anybody else have an idea why he might say yes? Yes.
Well, it's kind of tied to this, what Pastor Pete just said, but if you can extend that to something other than the birthday, it might be community exposure. You know,
Okay.
besides just people tied to one person.
Right. Right. 6. It's similar to what Pam said, but exposure. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to throw up there?
sort of goes with the first 2, but love and compassion. But I mean, I suppose that would
Yeah.
go with what you're saying
So
first, too.
it's an expression of love to this person, right? So you've come to us with a need and a request. Because we love you, we're going to do it. All right? So, okay, anybody else have any ideas about this they want to throw out there? Okay. I'm going to put up one more. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Stewardship of a facility,
Yeah.
like kingdom purpose, isn't it?
Yeah, which I think is similar enough to this one. I'm going to leave it there. You know, that the body of Christ, the church, is going to benefit. Okay, Andy?
Adela said the pastor wants cake.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Yeah, so, but see, we're waiting for it, you know? So, but we're waiting for it, but it took a long time to get to it. But there's a benefit to the pastor. Okay? Benefit to the pastor. And actually, we could call that, I'm going to throw in up here, I didn't write it, but it's a personal benefit to the pastor. Okay, so you just hit on it, Adela, with a good illustration there. All right? So, of these things we've put up here, I think, okay, let me put it out there. Are there any of these reasons why he would make this decision that would be not a good reason to make that decision? Okay. Okay. So we got number 8. And what's that? Number 3 are the two that are like bothering you. Like if a pastor was making decisions like that, it would bother you. All right. And maybe I'm going to add one more, which is similar but maybe a little bit different. It sort of could be included in this category, but I'm going to call it a different one. And this is going to be number 9. Which is like, because the requester is a friend of the pastor, all right? All right? See how that goes? Those persons are my friends, so I'm going to say yes, okay? Now, of course, the opposite side of that is if the person is not my friend, I say no, okay? And then, like, the opposite side of this one is personal benefit to the pastor. It might be a personal cost to the pastor. He would, it might cost him something to say yes to this request, so he says no. He can't make that sacrifice.
Yeah, and also, like maybe, or even going back to number 3, like maybe if it's a certain person, I don't care if I offend them.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
Not my friend, I don't want to offend my
Right.
friend, but this guy, if
Right.
he goes to another church, I'll have a party.
Yeah. Or, no, but seriously, included in this is the guy a major donor to the church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's going to motivate me on different levels.
Could be.
What I would say on this one, okay, there's a financial benefit to the church. All right? So what does that mean? Is my church in the business of renting out space to gain revenue? All right? We don't do that here, but we might.
Don't we?
I don't recall ever renting this place.
The parking lot, the gym.
Okay, you're right about that. Okay, let me. Okay, because you brought it up and you're right about it. This church does. Okay, just because we're on the subject, this church does rent out space. And on Sunday morning, you're here. We got our people down here on this end of the parking lot. On the other end of the parking lot is the church next door, right? The Nigerian church. They rent our parking lot. Okay, they pay us $1,000 a month to rent our parking lot. Okay, that parking lot's very expensive to repair. We're very glad to have that revenue. And then we've got the Filipino basketball league, right? That rents our gym, and there's good revenue to the church, from this. And I'm just to quantify it. What we get from the Filipinos is similar to what we get in rent from it's in that ballpark. And I know this is going around the world, but it's a fact of the case. So just while we're on that subject, there are laws in terms of, just because we're on this subject, there's something that the Internal Revenue Service is going to look at. This is America. I don't know how it works elsewhere. I don't care, but just unrelated business income. All right. So for us, the church, to run a profit-making business, to engage in commerce on this property, we can do it. But the space we use is no longer a non-taxable space, right? We'll get hit with property tax on that space because it's not being used for a religious purpose. And then number two, the business that we're running, that will have to charge sales tax, and I think we could be subject to, state and federal income tax on that income also, because we're operating a business. All right, and so why are we renting to these people? Well, I'll just tell you the story because we're on the subject. Number one, the Nigerian church next door has the same nonprofit charitable purpose that we have. So for us to use our space and charge them for it, we're not engaging in commerce. We're supporting their mission, which is almost identical to ours, and they're simply sharing in the cost, okay? And that's sort of where the law divides the line. Now, with the Filipino Basketball League, this is how it went, and this is going around the world, so here it is. We came to this realization a couple of years ago, hey, you know what, this isn't really right. We're renting out, we're making money on this thing. We either got to get, stop doing it, which we didn't want to because the revenue is important to us, or the other idea is maybe this Filipino Basketball League really is not so far from our purpose, So we started thinking about that, and Coach Lynch spoke to the guy who leads the Filipino Basketball League, and it turns out that this guy I think he's an ordained pastor, and he is involved in other ministries as well as this basketball league, and we said to him, if you can do what we do, like what Jim Pierce does, basketball is a ministry, there's preaching, of course we don't charge Jim Pierce, I think those guys contribute, but if you can turn this into what really is a ministry that's consistent with our nonprofit purpose, then we can keep renting to you because we're fulfilling our mission by assisting yours, which is similar to our mission. So the guy says, this is great, this is what I want to do anyway. So now they're having, preaching and devotionals, and it's like now it's a Christian or a basketball league with an evangelistic, bodybuilding, a body of Christ building part to it. So that's why that happens, okay? And, so this one right here, are we doing it for the money, or are we doing it because this birthday party is a function of the church, all right? And so for them to contribute to the cost is legitimate. Go ahead, Pastor Bob.
Okay, so here comes the question, and maybe you're going to ask
Right,
it,
right.
which is if you allow this, then what happens if someone else comes along and you say no?
Yeah, and this is,
And how do you decide?
right, and this is exactly the point, right? What's that? Yeah, so the question is, we say yes to this, what happens when somebody else comes along and says no?
And we want to say
All right? Pardon?
yeah, and we want to say no.
And we want to say no. And the question you're just asking is the reason why we're covering this subject here. And I'm not going to answer the question, but I'm going to give you some ways of thinking about it that may help you, all right? And that's why we have these different reasons for saying yes up here. If we say yes to one person, why would we say no to somebody else?
Another related question, maybe more on the why would you say no, and I think that this church addressed that issue, is that there's cost involved for the church to host an
Right,
event. There's
right.
security, there's housekeeping.
Exactly.
So there could be an expense to the
Right.
church that would cause you to say no.
Yes.
Or set a policy that the person's going to have to help with the cost.
Right. And you're hitting the nail on the head there, Pam. And let me just tell you, because you brought it up, where we have drawn the line here, okay? And I'm not saying we've drawn the line in the right place, but we have drawn a line. And when it comes to what we call like personal events, like you're having a birthday party or you're having bar mitzvah, I'm sorry, that's not a bad example. Sorry, forget that one. That just came to mind there. Whatever you're doing, that we have drawn a line and said, we're going to call that's your family business, and we're not going to have those types of events here. And that, for us to say it to people, it's kind of a violent thing to say. It kind of bothers them and it bothers us, but we don't do it. Now, why do we say no? I think maybe there's two reasons behind it. The first is because of the size of this facility, all right, and what it takes to run this place. It's impossible that we run any event without it affecting our housekeeping department, our security department, probably our technical operations department. Those would be the major ones that get affected. And then you run into publicity questions also, all right, where, okay, well, I'm having this birthday party, can you put it in the bulletin? That's the road we go down. And for us to be making those decisions week in and week out is like, it's such a difficult burden for us to bear. We've just said we cannot do it, It especially happens with wedding receptions, which we really don't do anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and just go down this road, and it will illustrate what we're talking about tonight, which is the use of personal connections within an organization to make something happen, right? What happens, like we hold weddings here. Like, why do we do that? And we hold face-to-face services. Weddings and face-to-face services we do hold here. And I'm not saying you should do this in your church at all. You're going to make your own decisions. But the reason we do those is because, in our opinion, those functions rise to the level, like they've crossed the threshold, that event is significant enough to enough people in our church that it makes sense to hold it here. That's how we've drawn that line. But again, are the people, and that's the second thing. Number one, the wear and tear on our staff to pull these events off. And then number two is with the size of our church, 1,500, 2,000 people, we don't really know who shows up, who doesn't show up. We are much more exposed than, I think, in principle, than the church in Cincinnati would be to people sort of, I don't want to say coming out of, I'm going to say it, people showing up that maybe they have a very marginal relationship with the church. They come to church several times a year. They think of us at their church, but we don't see them. Maybe they're not tithers. Not that we don't look at those records and make decisions that way, but how really closely connected is this person to this church? Or are they simply showing up in a time of need because, hey, and then we're put in a position of saying yes to a so-called body member that may or may not really be, I'm like, are they or aren't they? Do we put ourselves and expose ourselves to doing this, Go ahead, let's get the mic going again. Let's pass it over to Helena here.
In regards to weddings, isn't it also because what do you call it? Marriage is an institution that God has.
I don't think of it
decided
that way,
doesn't.
but maybe that's a very, very legitimate thing. Marriage is an ordinance, a function of the church. The church is performing it. Maybe that would be another motivation to have it here. But so just what constitutes, and that's what constitutes an official event of the church that we're going to get behind, and what is a personal event that we're going to get behind. And I think that decision really gets made on a practical level, not on a right and wrong level, but then you sort of expand it from there. Okay, so hey, I'm having a meeting of my, I want to have a meeting for my business, all right? Can I use the facility here? Well, it's not really a function of the church. Well, look, everybody in the church everybody in my business is in the church, except for a few people, and we're trying to win them. And furthermore, we're a Christian business. We do donate to the church. We donate to missions. So can we have our event here? Where we've drawn the line is, no, we're not going to have that event here, because we're back to what do we expose ourselves to now, and we have a policy of certain things we will do and certain things we don't do, and what it does is, in a sense, here we are, how we operate versus how it affects people. But what we want to do is, even though people will take it that way, we don't want the question to be fought out on this ground of whether or not we love that person or not. All right? When people come to you, they will take it that way, but we have to be able to explain to them why, when we're saying no, this is not a barometer of whether or not we love you. It's simply the church operating the best way it can to really fulfill the mission of the church, of which you're an important part of it. But understand, we're saying no because it will help us all get what we want, is for the church to be effective. All right? And even with our weddings, that we do, and we do them here, and we're happy to do them. Certainly, they're got to be church members that are going to do their wedding there. But what we have is, we've created this position called the wedding coordinator. Okay, and that person gets paid on a event by event basis. And here's the purpose of the wedding coordinator, is to protect the staff of the church from requests that person might have. Because if we don't have that, they're representing the church to define, this is what we can do, this is what we cannot do. Because without that wedding coordinator in place, because we're body members, we're friends, we know each other, that the bride who wants to have her dream wedding, she will go from department to department in the church, speaking to her friends and saying, hey, can you do this for me? Scott, would you mind setting this up for me? Paul or Sebastian, would you mind doing a video presentation for me? Julius, can you put on this amazing musical presentation for me? And then these people end up in the position where they do love the people, they do care about them, they do want to help, but we end up devoting too many resources to this, and then these people who work for us and already have a job where we're working them to the hilt, getting them to do as much they can do, they end up doing something that we did not ask them to do out of the goodness, and we love it. We love the heart. We're glad it's happening, but now, are these guys coming into work tired on Monday morning? Is there something else that got dropped that's very important to us that they're doing at the request of that individual? And that's why we want to take it out of that realm if we can. But again, I think it depends on your church and what you're able to do. I was in the church in the Berkshires. We got 50, 100 people in the church. We didn't run into this as much because the need wasn't so great. But so this is like a large and obvious presentation in a large church with a lot of exposure. But this is how we've answered the question. But get this: these same issues are going to come up, not just with dealing with somebody who wants to have a wedding on your property. It's going to come up within your church administration, right? Where you have one department with a certain area of delegation, you have another department, and even if people are not on the payroll, one department, one individual go to another asking for assistance, and you can end right back up in this place. Do you love and care about me? Why are you saying no to me? That does damage to my conscience on both sides. And I'm recommending that what we want to do in our organizations is have clear definition so that people are secure in their area of delegation, the lines that they have around them, and when they need to get permission to operate to make an exception. And I want those lines that are drawn to be communicated to the entire staff of the organization so people know what they're going to bump into and not think that they're bumping into somebody who's just having a bad day or does not like them, or to find a way to operate of bumping into somebody who does like them, and I know I can get what I want from this person because I have a personal connection with them, okay? Now, when I went to work here in go ahead, let's get the mic over to Pastor Bob here.
The other thing is, I mean, you talked about like the issue of people internally wanting to use the facility, but one of the things you have to address is who are you going to let, if anybody, that's external
Right.
want to use the facility, right?
Absolutely.
And if you don't have defined policies and you reject certain people, for whatever reason,
Right.
we could think of, marriages that we don't support and
Right.
those kinds of things.
Right.
Then they will say, oh, you're just discriminating against
Right.
me, I'm going to go take action. But if you
Yeah.
have a defined policy
Right.
that says these are the only kinds of things that we will do, then they can't do that.
Right. And that specific subject, I'm not going to go any further into that specific road. I understand that's a road, but it's number one specific. I'm not going to go down there right now, and maybe not this week. But now I want a disclaimer, all right? Only have a policy if you need one, all right? If you don't need a policy, why have it? If this comes up once every 3 years, you make the accommodation. And yeah, last time we did this, somebody spilled a bunch of birthday cake on the floor, and somebody else had to clean it up. If the church can bear that, thank God. I don't, if no one's nose got out of joint over it, you don't need a policy. It's like no problem. But I'm saying, when these stresses get large enough, I'm recommending put the policy in place so that people know where they stand and they can function. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, like I say, people's consciences being bothered, and it'll put people. I'm really transitioning from the internal external into what happens internally within the organization. You know what I'm saying? What can I get my Sunday school leader to do for me? What can I get the music leader to do for me? You know what I'm saying? How does this go? If I got some body member goes to the worship leader, hey, I have a request. Can we sing this song more? You know what I'm saying? And where does he stand when that question gets asked, right? And what tools or structure does he have to answer that question so it doesn't get out of hand? You know what I'm saying? When I came to work here in 1999, my conclusion was I never worked here before. Like, how does this place really work? And the way I answered the question to myself was this way: what makes this place go is a multitude of personal connections, right? That was my perception of how things got done around here. I would ask somebody, well, let me call so-and-so, all right? And before I talk about that any further, like when I go into like 7-Eleven, right? I give them money. They give me a Minute Maid orange juice. You know what I'm saying? That's how it goes. That transaction is what I call like an objective transaction. Okay? I know what they're doing for me. They know what I'm doing for them. If I walk in the door, we all know how it's going to go. All right? We know what the result is going to be. All right? I could go into that store and start complimenting, hey, your hair looks nice today. You know what I'm saying? Start cultivating a relationship with that, with that sales clerk, all right? And I come in every day, boy, you look beautiful today, that type of thing. Oh, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. You bring sunshine into my day. And then eventually, right, like why am I doing that? Like, what is my purpose in doing that? to get that person to a point where they will start doing favors for, hey, I'm not going to charge you today. It's like no problem. I'm so glad you're here. You know what I'm saying? Now, if the sales clerk starts doing that, right? Now, is she in trouble or isn't she? Well, it depends on the store, right? Does she have the leeway from her boss to make that accommodation for the purpose of cultivating repeat business? Some businesses have that. That judgment call can be made. So I'm not saying she was right or wrong. I don't know. And in a sense, it's 7-Eleven's problem, not my problem. But if I go in there and she did it for me once, and now I'm wondering, is she going to do it for me again, right? Like, will this happen again? And if I'm nice enough to this person, can I make this happen again, right? And this is the illustration I'm giving you. That can happen within our organizations, all right? Where someone, because of a personal connection, can get more from somebody else in the church than from somebody who doesn't have that personal connection, all right? And this is the principle that we're talking about. Like, I don't like that person, so I'm going to say no because I don't want to do it for them, all right? So who, what is the job of the song leader, right? How does he make decisions for the church, right? Does he take requests from body members? Is that known? Or is the person who makes the request, how does that person interpret the fact that yes was just said to me? Does this person go outside of that have the conversation with the song leader and then start talking to her friends, right? The song leader, and she talks to a friend, I'm good with the song leader. I asked him to do a song for me and he did it. And then the person's friend says to him, oh geez, I got a song I want them to hear. I would like to hear in the church. And then the person who made the original request says, let me ask him for you. All right, everybody get that right now? Let me ask him for you because I have a personal connection with him that you do not have, all right? At that point, you just damaged your church, all right? But what people learn from that thing is somehow I need to cultivate friendships, or if I'm not cultivating friendships, why is that happening? And now you no longer have an organization that works. You have an organization that becomes like crazy, all right? It happens in our families. You know what I'm saying? We got, brothers and sisters, and I know my brother can get this from dad, but I can't, so you go ask him. And some of that's inevitable. I understand that. We are people. These things will happen. But I don't want us to set up crazy organizations that leaves both the requestor and the requestee in a situation like, should I be doing this? Because if I start doing it for certain people and not for others, I'm going to put myself in the situation that the church can be in as a whole by stressing the staff. I'm going to start stressing myself, right? I'm going to start doing things that I don't know if I should or shouldn't be doing it. I don't know if I have the time to do it because I've created an economy where people can come to me because they're my friends and get what I want. And then if I start saying no, my love is damaged and their love is damaged because that's how this gets interpreted. You don't like me anymore. What happened? What did I do wrong? Why is this happening? And then to fix that problem that we've created, it's not easy to make that happen. Everybody understand that? So now, so where does the personal element come in? Like when I go to 7-Eleven and I buy something from them, I want to be kind to that person, and I want that person to be kind back to me. I don't want to be treated like a machine. I'm not a machine, all right? We are people. The personal element is like, it's like what we're doing this for. You know what I'm saying? Like, thank you for being here, 7-Eleven, and providing me with a service that's helping me. And then on the other side, thank you for being our customer. You are why we're here, because we're gonna meet your need. That's like a great thing. And because we're people, we care about each other. That type of interaction is necessary and important. Something was just in and out of my mind I wanted to say. Will it come back in time? Oh, yeah, and if that isn't there, I'm going to start going somewhere else, all right? But that kindness, that interaction, there's no motive behind it, right? Because the motive is love, right? Now I'm free to love you because what's going on between us is defined and objective. Therefore, I can love you without it being taken as an attempt to get you to do something that you should not or don't want to be doing, right? Or is not your area of delegation to do it.
Can you repeat that?
I don't think so, but I'll try again. All right? So I go into 7-Eleven. I know that they've got a policy, right? There's an economic exchange that's going to happen. If I walk up to the counter with my product, I know what they're charging me. I know they're going to ring me up. They're going to take my money. I'm going to walk out. They're going to get what they want, and I'm going to get what I want. So because that's already defined when I walk through the door, when I start being kind to that person, right? This is like, great. Yes, I love you, right? I'm not doing this because I need to do it to make things go right, all right? Now, we all know that if we go in and act like jerks, people are people, right? And if every day I go into a store, right, and I'm unkind to that person, that relationship at some point is going to deteriorate to the point where I'm no longer going to be a customer there. You know what I'm saying? They can't take the abuse. I mean, people in Baltimore City take a ton of abuse. I cannot believe what happens in these stores, you know? I think that's why maybe sometimes we're better with people from other cultures running these things because they don't get how badly they're being treated, you know what I'm saying? I think that's how it goes sometimes. And I think, sorry, that's just a little aside. But yeah, so kindness makes the world go round, right? I understand that. And if someone in my office in the church comes to me every time and is unkind to me, either I have to sit down with them and say, look, I cannot be treated this way anymore. Do you understand what you're doing to me? I cannot take this as a human being. But if I don't do that, then the quality of service is going to start dropping, all right? When I see that person walk into my office, I'm going to leave, lock the door, and go to the bathroom and hope they don't come back, right? And this happens, all right? This happens, all right? So let me just see what else I got about this. Yeah. So without definition and training, the person who has the need, I don't mean but the person who needs something, the person and the supplier do not know how to act, all right? So if my personal connection is necessary to get a certain need met, I'm saying that is characteristic of an unhealthy organization, right? And back to what Pastor Bob was saying, when we say no, is there a policy behind that? Because again, this thing right here, the church will benefit, and then exposure in the community. I don't like saying no when people call us up, and ask, can we do a blood drive there? Can we use your facility for this community purpose? I don't like saying no because I do believe it's hurting us in terms of exposure, and exposure benefits the church. And in a sense, I wish we could do it. There's no joy in saying no, but I know what's behind the policy. Of course, I've had a hand in writing it. And if we start going in the other direction, like we did this once, all right? And, okay, here we go down the road. We years ago, we had, there's like maybe a gypsy church in there's gypsies, all right? I don't see them, but they're here, all right? And I'm not saying they're riding around in wagons with horses. They're living normal lives like we do, but it's still a culture and an operation. And these people were born-again Christians, great people, happy people. I liked them, you know what I'm saying? And I forget where the policy stood at that time, but we we went ahead and hosted this event. They may have given us $500 for the use of the chapel. I'm just not remembering, but there may have been a financial element involved there, all right? So it was a Christian wedding, but there was stuff in the wedding that if we'd known it was coming, we would have done something about it. So the next day, I'm hearing from my staff, do you realize there's broken alcohol bottles that I had to clean up this morning? And it's like, oh my gosh. So now I've bothered the conscience of, you know, our clientele, which is our church. Like, so for the sake of these other people, to be nice to them and to give them what they wanted, now I've just damaged my own church. And then there's another thought also that goes along with that, and I'm like a liberal on this, but there's conservatives, and I respect the conservative position. I don't hold it myself, but it goes like this way, like our chapel is sacred. Like that is where the Word of God is preached, and we're going to put something else in that space, and it's like I don't have that sensitivity, but in terms of like policy and how we can, oh my gosh, we haven't had a break yet. I see, we went down the road here. So we'll break soon. Sorry about this, but no, like what is our mission here? Why do we have this building? Why have I taken your hard-earned tithe dollars, and then paying, you know, millions of dollars to our staff to maintain this place, and the capital improvement? It's for the mission of this church. Why do I want to distract myself with being nice to people that I like or want to help? You know, my heart goes out to them. It could be a testimony, right? It absolutely is. You know, if we're kind to anybody, it's a testimony. So I don't want to say no, but again, are we being distracted from our mission because we want people to like us? And you know, every church is going to make its own decision. But again, it's too much with this inside-outside thing. What I want to talk about is inside. What happens among your staff, paid or volunteer? How are they interacting? And the smaller the church, the less of an issue it is. The smaller the church is, the more it's a family operation. The larger the church gets, the more you got to bring in organizational principles that will help, that will make things work. You know what I'm saying? How do I get an announcement put in the bulletin? All right, there's an answer to that question. Right? How do I get something announced from the pulpit? There's a person who makes that decision. Oh, is that fair? That's how we do it. All right, we're trusting that person's judgment. You may or may not like the answer. Hopefully, if we start thinking that he's doing stuff for his friends that he won't do for people he's not close to, let us know if you think that's happening. We'll have a conversation with him. But there is a judgment call that's made in terms of what gets announced from the platform. You know, you got to live with that. It's the best we can do. All right. Other situations, it's not the best we can do. It's you know, there's a policy that governs. Yes, you can have your wedding here, but again, let's get away from that. Goes what happens within the organization. You know, can I use the youth center to hold an event? Like my department wants to have some meeting. Can I hold the youth center? That is a judgment call. We ask the keeper of that space, which is Pastor Pete Westera, is it okay if this other department uses this? And then he makes a decision, I think, normally based on the impact. Like if it's not going to mess up what I'm called to do there, what the church has given me to do with that space, if it's not going to affect that, then I think the answer is probably going to be yes. Hopefully he's not making decisions about, judgment calls. Do I like this person? Don't I? They're my friend. If I say yes, if I say no. What's that? What can you do for me? Yeah. So, but again, I'd also say, knowing Pastor Pete Westera, he is a wheeler dealer, and he'll push the envelope, But again, it has not reached. He's amazing actually as a staff member. He really, he'll take no for an answer when he gets. You slap your hand once in a while, right? But it goes well, And again, it's never policy for the sake of policy, right? Its policy is needed to help the church run better, And if I don't see if you can get away without it. I don't want to put it that way, but if you don't need it, it's not a problem until it's a problem. How do you like that? It's not a problem until it's a problem, and then we got to do something about it. So, listen, I've gone 2 hours here. I was afraid to start this thing, but here we are. Let's. I think this is going to take a long break. All right, we'll go to 10:45.